Hello, and welcome to the Written Comment Workshop. For this workshop, we are going to go through a little bit of introductions, followed by an overview of public comment, an overview of the Lowry Ranch CAP proposal that we're addressing in this workshop, a little time for questions and answers, some writing time together, and finally, we'll conclude with next steps. So a little introduction of 350 Colorado. We are the largest Colorado-based grassroots nonprofit and network focused on taking action to stop climate change. So our mission is to build the local grassroots movement to solve the climate crisis and transition to a sustainable future. We have 3 pillars of action: movement building, keeping fossil fuels in the ground, and promoting solutions. So for this workshop, we're focusing on that second pillar, keeping fossil fuels in the ground. And for this workshop, we're partnering with Save the Aurora Reservoir, or STAR, which is a small community-based group that is focusing on environmental advocacy to safeguard their local community and resources from potential hazards of fracking. And you can learn more about STAR at savetheaurorareservoir.org. I encourage you to check it out, learn more about this great community group and the work that they're doing to push back against fracking proposed in their neighborhood. So for this workshop, I want to go into a little bit of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Well, there is a big decision before the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission, also known as the ECMC. And the ECMC is accepting written comments right now from the public until the deadline of Friday, May 3rd. Submitting written comments is a crucial way for members of the public like us to participate in government decisions and influence the outcome. Why we're doing this is because the ECMC is currently considering a comprehensive area plan, or CAP, that proposes over 160 new oil and gas fracking wells in southeast Aurora. This massive plan poses risks, significant risks, to the public health, water quality, air quality, public lands and wildlife, and of course our climate. So together, we can make our collective voice heard and push back against this threat to the reservoir, communities, and the way of life in this part of southeast Aurora. So now I'd like to hear a little bit from all of you. Please share your name, pronouns, your location, and what brings you here tonight. Why did you choose to join the workshop? Well, thank you for those introductions. Next up, I want to give an overview of the public comment process. So to begin, what is public comment? Well, when important decisions like this one are being made by a city, county, state, or even federal government, responsible decision makers will accept public comment from the people affected by those decisions, right? It's basic good governance. The decision could be a proposed change in regulation, a proposed new law, or approving a new project, something like this comprehensive area plan we're looking at today. And members of the public get to provide relevant feedback, ideas, concerns about that decision that's under consideration by the government. And I like this image we have here because it really brings home the importance of public participation in our democracy. We have 3 branches of government: judicial, legislative, executive, but another critical pillar of a functioning democracy is participation by the people. So that's what we're doing with public comment. So why would we submit a public comment? Well, first of all, comments can help leaders make better decisions. It helps them better understand the resistance or acceptance of an issue and allows people with lived experience to share their views on a matter. Commenting is our chance to point out issues, alternatives, and help decision makers identify solutions that they may not have initially considered. Third, submitting comments demonstrates interest, passion, and commitment to an issue or policy. Comments can also establish legal standing for groups like 350 Colorado or STAR that allows them to play a larger role in decision-making going forward. So it can be a critical step for building advocacy strength. And finally, I want to bring home the point that the more people who give public comment, the stronger the message. There really is power in numbers when it comes to these kinds of big decisions. While a single comment alone is unlikely to change minds, a flood of sincere comments from those who are affected can influence decisions. So the more comments, the better. And every comment counts in this. So I want to stress that your voice matters here. It really makes a difference to add your voice to the comment process. So let's look at what a public comment should entail. So your name, where you live, who you are. You want to express who you are in terms of what's relevant here to the decision at play. Are you a student? Are you a grandparent, a parent, a teacher, a runner, an angler? What kind of identities do you carry that are relevant here? Why do you care about this? What part of yourself and your story is relevant to this decision right now? Then you want to clearly state if you are for or against the proposal. Now, this might seem obvious, but it's funny. Sometimes we can get carried away in writing our comment and not state clearly up front or somewhere in there whether we are for or against the proposal. And then you want to explain why you are for or against the proposal based on your personal experience. So how has this affected you, your family, your neighbors, your community? Because you are the expert on your story. And you really want to write a comment that is unique to you. What is the comment that you can write that only you can write? The more personal it is, the more credibility it gives that this is a comment that really matters to you. You're passionate about this. You have a deep interest in this decision before the government. And then you want to state, what do you want them to do? What do you want these decision makers to do? So you can describe any changes to the proposal you would like to see, or just what you want them to reject, or accept. So make it clear what decision you want them to make. And in this case, it could be everything from outright rejection of a cap to changes to that cap, changes in the plan, additional protections for water, air quality, or human health. Or it could be delaying the decision until relevant other decisions are made or new regulations are in place. In this case, there is a cumulative impacts rulemaking that the state is working on that was just postponed. They postponed the rulemaking just now in this last month. And that has significant impacts on the CAP because we thought that those cumulative impacts rules, which would provide additional scrutiny and protection, we thought those rules would be in place before this CAP decision is made. And so pointing that out and urging the government to postpone a decision until those regulations are in place is a very valid thing that you could include in your comment. And finally, you want to thank the decision makers for their time and consideration. These are public servants, and although sometimes we do not agree with the decisions we make, they are there to serve the public, to serve their community, especially at the local and state government. These are public servants that are working hard and often, in their view, doing the very best that they can in the system in which they are working. And so it is valuable to thank them for their time, thank them for consideration of your comment, and urge them to make a good decision that you would support. Okay, so that's the content of a comment. I want to give you a few inspiring words about speaking up. So first of all, let's keep in mind from the Center for Civil Engagement that democracy is a slow process of stumbling to the right decision instead of going straight forward to the wrong one. And never be afraid to raise your voice for honesty and truth and compassion against injustice and lying and greed. If people all over the world would do this, it would change the earth. From William Faulkner. And finally, an anonymous quote for you. Just keep fighting as hard as you can. Your voice is so important. Your stories have truly changed hearts and minds. So that's some inspiration for writing our written comments. Next, I want to give you an overview of the Lowry Ranch CAP that we've been talking about. Let's take a look. So this is a map that gives you a rough view of where the CAP is. The exact shape has changed a little bit in the latest proposal, but it gives you a reference of where this is. Southeast Aurora, not that far from the heart of Aurora, and Denver. This is a little schematic that gives you a sense of what fracking operations are like. It's not to scale and not exact, but gives you a sense of that long vertical drill that can be thousands of feet deep. In this case, around 7,000 feet is what they're planning to drill down. And then the wellbore turns horizontally and spreads out through rock formations for 2 or 3 miles in this case. So down thousands of feet and then horizontally a couple of miles or more. And then from that horizontal line, there is fracking used to split apart the rock formation and release the hydrocarbons, the oil and gas, to flow back up the well line to the surface. So that's what we're talking about. And here's a couple of pictures to give you an idea of what it looks like in real life. This is a fracking rig not far from homes. This photo during the day was taken in a different part of Colorado, but the photo on the right of nighttime operations is in Arapahoe County, in Aurora. And you can see that these operations go 24/7 through the night, can be quite noisy and very, very bright. The lights can be seen for miles. And then during the after the drilling and fracking phase has been completed, the wells switch into production. And these are some images of production sites where you'll see multiple wells, lots of piping and other equipment, large storage tanks and separators there that at the well pad. And these well pads can produce for 25 years or more, depending on the amount of resources down there accessed by the wells. So these are kind of what we call mega pads with many wells on one well pad. In this case, the CAP includes 10 different well pads and a total of 160 wells. So in this image, we can see the dark polygons are the well pads, and the red lines running east and west are the subsurface wellbores. So the wells drill down about 7,000 feet and then horizontal 2 or 3 miles east or west. So you can really get a sense from this image, the number of lines and the extent of the reach. So I want to talk about impacts real quick. There are a lot of impacts from this, and we have a lot of details about those different impacts in some sample comment letters that I'll share with you shortly. But just to give you a brief overview, one of the biggest impacts is our air quality. You can see that image of the fog, the smog around the city. And a big source of that smog is from oil and gas operations that contribute to toxic ground level ozone. Ozone is a good thing when it's up in the stratosphere. It protects us from solar radiation. But down at the ground level where people are, it's really hazardous to health to have ozone in our breathing air. So oil and gas contributes significantly to that, which is part of the smog problem that we have. Additionally, big impacts to human health, especially children, elders, and other folks with respiratory concerns. There are a lot of toxic pollutants, carcinogens that are released from oil and gas operations, such as benzene and other chemicals. Water is another big area of impact. Water contamination is a concern from spills and from air pollution that can settle into water. But additionally, fracking uses a tremendous amount of water. Millions of gallons of fresh water are pumped down fracking wells. And when it comes back up as produced water, it is highly contaminated, very toxic. It's often radioactive and really unsafe to return to the water cycle. So that's a big concern. Impacts to wildlife include destruction of habitat, noise pollution, light pollution, and of course, they're subject to air pollution and water pollution as well. And then finally, I want to mention that there is a Superfund site in this area that is of big concern, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But here's an image that gives you a sense of the number of schools that are close to the wells that are within the CAP boundary. So all of these schools, elementary schools and middle schools, could be impacted by the public health impacts of having fracking wells nearby. And this image here gives you a sense of the neighborhoods in the CAP. So this area used to be low population. It was not developed until more recently compared to other parts of the metro area, but it is quite developed now. There are many communities in this area: Beacon Point, South Shore, Wheatlands, Southlands, Tollgate Crossing, Talons Reach. These are all large communities with thousands of homes, all told, that are right on the front lines of this massive fracking plan. And here's that Superfund site I mentioned to you all. The Lowry Landfill Superfund site has over 138 million gallons of industrial waste and numerous toxic materials, and considered one of the most contaminated Superfund sites in the nation. And you can see from that little graphic moving there, that's the plume coming off of that Superfund site, 3-mile plume. And it's just north of the Lowry Ranch CAP. And so there's concern that fracking underground could impact the layer of bedrock that is keeping most of that contamination from spreading into the aquifers. So very concerning here. Not to mention that the reservoir dam, the Aurora Reservoir Dam, has underlied by a growing fault line. And so if there were dangerous seismicity caused by fracking, it could impact that dam potentially, could impact this Superfund site plume, and could be a bad situation. Okay, so what do we do about all this? We organize and we speak up, and that is exactly what we're doing here tonight. We know one of the most direct ways to make substantial change is by getting our decision makers to make that change when we demand it by using our voices and using our advocacy. So let's do it. Let's give public comment together to make our voices heard on this massive fracking proposal. So I've got some resources to help you out with. There is a blog post on the 350 Colorado website that gives a little more information, some of the same information I've gone over here tonight, along with some very useful resources. So there's more information. There's sample comments I mentioned. There's 3 sample comments you can take a look at. One is about protecting our open space and wildlife. One is about protecting our health and safety of our families. And the last one is about protecting water. It also addresses seismicity concerns I mentioned and the Superfund site. So those sample comments are there on the blog post, and you can pull from them. You can copy and paste directly. You can take bits and pieces out of all 3, or you can create your own comment from scratch, perhaps inspired by some of these sample comments. And then on that blog post, there's also a link to submit your comment through the Google form. So here is the link to that blog post that I'm talking about. You can scan the QR code, pause the video if you need to, and scan that code, or you can use that web address listed there to access the blog post. You You can also just go to 350colorado.org and navigate to the blog. It's currently the first post up on the blog, so pretty easy to find that way. So that's what we'll use to get started. So you can use those sample comments. You can pull some of the facts and figures that are in those sample comments about the different impacts, or you can write your own from scratch and submit it through that Google form that we have linked there on the blog post as well. So we'll take some time right now to get writing on our written comments. All right, now I want to talk about next steps. So first of all, please keep in mind that the written comment period closes on Friday, May 3rd. So make sure you get your comments submitted before that. You don't want to be down to the wire and miss the chance to get your written comment in. Do it now. Secondly, there will be a local public hearing that's been requested by STAR, requested from the ECMC, the state government agency that's making the decision here. So we're waiting to hear back when and where that local public hearing will be. We don't know yet, but we want to have a huge turnout for this. It's really important to show how many people care about this and how important it is to the community. So we're trying to have a huge turnout for that hearing. Please stay tuned. We will announce it loud, far, and wide as soon as we know. And the official vote will happen during an ECMC virtual public meeting, which right now is tentatively set for June 26th. It's possible that date will change based on when the local public hearing is. We'll know more as soon as we know about that hearing. But this is another important opportunity for public comment, and this time it would be verbal public comment, so an opportunity to speak your comment aloud during that virtual meeting. Additionally, there's some other really important ways to participate and take action here. So I think one of the most powerful things is to spread the word. Word of mouth is really critical in a grassroots movement like this. So talk to neighbors, talk to your community leaders, to your school leaders, to your clubs and groups, everybody that you can reach, your church, your synagogue. Every community connection that you have is worth sharing some information about this proposal and why you care about it, and how others can join you in taking action and making voices heard. Secondly, you can write a letter to the editor or an op-ed. And we do have a really great toolkit to use to get going on writing a letter to the editor. And now that you've written a comment, you already have some great language to use. You can repurpose that easily for a letter to the editor or an op-ed. And that toolkit is posted on the same blog post I mentioned earlier with the sample comments. It's all there, as well as links to social media for STAR. That's going back to spreading the word. That's a really powerful way to spread the word. So there's links to the Instagram for STAR and the Facebook for STAR. It's all there on that blog post. You can also contact your elected officials. So county, city, state elected officials, they don't have decision making right now about the Lowry Ranch CAP. They don't have the power to make a decision, but it doesn't hurt to contact them anyway and let them know, as their constituent, this is something that really matters to you, and you would like them to be paying attention and ensuring a proper process is followed and that a good decision happens. And we'd love them to advocate on your behalf. And finally, you can contact the ECMC commissioners themselves, the individuals that sit on that decision-making commission. You can write to them through email. You can request a meeting with any one of them and have a chance to speak directly to the decision makers. If you're interested in that, you can let me know and I can help set that up. So these are all important next steps that you can take and that we're taking together as a movement. Check out that blog post, which has links to all this stuff and more information. We'll also be keeping that updated as new dates are known, such as the local public hearing and that official vote during the virtual public meeting. And that's it for now. Thank you so much. Thanks for participating in this democracy and submitting a comment. It's so powerful, and especially together, all of our voices speaking together on this can really have an influence on the outcome. Thank you so much for being here.